Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another week in the 365 Movie Challenge. Today's video is going to be a little bit different because I am behind. So today I have the day off. My wife is at work, and then she's going out with some friends later, which means I have the whole house to myself. So today is my catch-up day. I'm really excited to dig into a whole bunch of movies with you guys, and I've got just the thing for the occasion, a package opening. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Saint Euphoria. This is kind of a little bit more outside the box. I'll be curious to know how many of you guys know what's in here. Leave a comment down below if you know what this is. But if you look at this closely, you'll see it's coming from St. Paul, Minnesota. I am from St. Paul, Minnesota. This is a complete DVD box set of a filmmaker that's local to here. So I'm going to go ahead and break this open, show you guys what it is I've got. To be honest, I'm not even sure exactly how many movies are in here. There's more than 7, so we won't get through all of them today. But the goal is going to be to get through at least 7. And depending on how this 7 goes, maybe I'll do another round of this filmmaker in a different week. All right, let's see what we've got. Okay. Okay, so we're talking about 17 movies here. I got this set off of this filmmaker's website direct for $90. He had a New Year sale going on. And if you haven't figured it out yet, I am talking about Christopher Mihm. Look at all those spines right there. So like I said, Christopher Mihm is a filmmaker local to my area. And basically he makes throwback 1950s drive-in movies. So for example, The Monster of Phantom Lake, you can see this is signed by the director. I don't know if all of them are signed. I think I might have all of them signed. But his films have won some awards, as you can see on the back here. This is his first film that he did. And all of the movies that he makes are all set in the same universe and are loosely connected. So I don't know exactly what that means because I've never seen them, but I'm assuming it's kind of like a View Askew kind of a thing. So here's It Came From Another World. This is from 2007. This is the second feature that he did. There's the back. Next up, we've got Cave Women on Mars. And the back of that one. And I think these were all put in here in order. Yeah, 2008. He basically makes a movie a year. So we've got Terror from Beneath the Earth. And there's the back. These do actually have some extras like trailers and commentary, stuff like that, so it might be kind of fun to dig into those. Next up we have Destination Outer Space. And the back of that one. I'm really curious to see just how many of these bad boys I can get through today. The goal is going to be to get through 7 of these movies, but if I can get through more than that, I'll certainly do so, and we'll just keep the review train going, and next week's video will just be a little bit shorter with not quite as many movies. But, you know, there's a whole range to the runtime on these. Some of them are like an hour 40 minutes. Some of them are like an hour 10 minutes. So as long as it's over an hour, that is the technical definition of a feature-length film. Now, obviously, I'm not looking to cheat on this marathon, so I'm not, you know, out looking for a bunch of 68-minute movies like The Giant Spider. But if I've got a theme going, and I naturally end up watching some shorter movies, I don't see anything wrong with that. So here we've got The Wall People. Oh no, sorry, Late Night Double Feature, X, The Fiend from Beyond Space, and The Wall People as the second feature. Interesting. So I'm guessing these are 90 minutes combined. I don't know how that would count in this marathon. Depending on how this is set up, this would count as one movie if I even get this far, although we're now quite far into the collection, so the chances of that one being an issue are not too likely to be crossed today. Here's a good one. The most controversial film ever made, Weresquito, Nazi Hunter. Of course, filmed in plasmascope. This one looks like a blast. The Monster from Phantom Lake, the musical. So this particular one isn't really a movie, it is a recording of the musical play. So this might be kind of an interesting one to watch, although Probably not for the marathon. Next up, we've got Demon with the Atomic Brain. Back. Alright guys, we're almost there, and then we'll get into this marathon. Part of what excites me about doing this marathon is just the range of stuff that Christopher Mihm has done. Obviously, they're all kitschy 50s throwback, but you've got Guns of the Apocalypse, which is like a Western throwback, and then you've got the one with Nazis, and you've got giant mosquitoes, and you've got lake monsters, just all kinds of stuff out there available for you to check out. So my plan is to do this chronologically, although part of me wants to skip around because some of these are actually really jumping out at me, but I think I'll stick to the chronological watch and just take you guys on this journey with me. This movie came out in 2020. I wonder if this is going to be some kind of a virus movie? Question mark, we'll see. Alright, and then the last film in the collection is The Beast Walks Among Us. This features the Phantom Lake Kids, who were in The Unseen Invasion. I'm assuming they're a relatively recent addition to the filmography. And then there is one more DVD in here. It's just not a full-length feature, and that is the Mihmverse Christmas Special, which you can see is actually signed by a couple of different people, which is kind of cool. And my understanding of this is this just features a lot of the cast from the Mihm movies playing their parts in some kind of a Christmas-themed special. I don't know. I don't know the details of it, so I guess we'll find out when we get there. Alright, so as you can see, we've got a huge stack of movies here to get through. The time is now just about 10:30, so I'm going to start digging into these movies. At some point, I'm going to have to take a break, get something to eat, but otherwise, I'm watching movies all day, and we're going to see just how many of these Christopher Mihm movies we can get through. Of course, what better way to break in my brand new TV setup than with a DVD? Okay, so really quick update. I just finished the intro to The Monster of Phantom Lake and discovered that it's Christopher Mihm, not Meme. Oops. And the universe is called the Mimiverse, not the Memeverse or the Mimverse. So just a quick correction as I'm getting into this first movie here.
I have been, and always shall be, your friend. All right, we ready? Oh, wait.
Alright, just finished up It Came From Another World, the second Christopher Mihm film following up The Monster from Phantom Lake. The time is 2 o'clock and I'm only 2 movies in. I've got at least 5 more to get through. So I'm going to take a second, get some food in me, and then I'm going to be right back here for the next Mimiverse movie. Alright, going to stop and refuel. Got some keto pizza that I put together yesterday. Going to just eat it cold. It'll make a good lunch. Oh yeah! This portion of the video is brought to you by Fred Hall Direct Edition. If I'm being completely honest with you guys, I have no idea if Fred Hall watches these 365 movie challenge videos, but if your name is not Fred Hall and you haven't been to his YouTube channel, be sure to go over there, subscribe. He does toy unboxings, comic book hauls, magazine hauls. He's a lot of fun. Go check him out. All right, next up, Cave Women on Mars. We have got at least 5 more movies to get through, and it is already after 2 o'clock. I think we are going to need a montage. Are you kidding me? Chris Mihm, independent filmmaker, you're gonna force me to watch this trailer? Like, seriously? Alright, so it's about 10:30 at night. I would imagine my eyes are a little bit bloodshot. They're not too bad, actually. But I did manage to make it through 7 of Christopher Mihm's films. I debated about watching an 8th. I do technically have time to sneak in one more before I really have to crash. But I decided instead that I would record this video just to kind of get my initial impressions out there. And then in a future week down the road, I will watch the remaining films in the series and give you my whole thoughts on the series as a whole. That said, I can certainly share my thoughts on the first half of the series. If I'm being honest, the thing about these 50s throwback movies is they're actually a hard sell for me. If Christopher Mihm wasn't local to my area, I probably would have skipped these in total transparency. It's interesting because even as early as the 1960s, there were throwback movies to the 50s sci-fi drive-in era. You've got Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I'm particular to a throwback film that is contemporary to the Mihm series, which is The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra. I think that movie does a really good job hitting the sweet spot between homage and spoof, which is something that a lot of the films in this genre don't quite nail down. The thing that makes me kind of steer away from this genre is kind of twofold. First of all, I can just go watch any of those 50s sci-fi throwbacks on their own. Like, I really enjoy Sam Katzman's movies. The Giant Claw is one of my favorite So Bad It's Good movies. A ton of those types of movies are out there available to watch and very entertaining, whether it's for laugh value or genuine fun. The other issue I have with this genre is, especially nowadays, if you're making a 50s throwback movie, there's an element of it that feels like a crutch for poor filmmaking. So, like, if you're making a 50s B movie, you know it's going to have bad acting, bad effects, poor or no camera movement whatsoever. It just allows you to cut a lot of corners and then get away with it because that's the style you're going for. And at least for me, that's no excuse for poor filmmaking. There's a philosophical decision that you have to make when you're making these 50s throwback movies, because are you literally copying that style? Because if you're just copying it stylistically, then there's really no excuse for your movie not being the mother of all B movies, right? Because nowadays the technology is so accessible that if you do something in that style, you should easily be able to do it better than any other 50s movie. But of course, most filmmakers don't do it that way. They try to have their cake and eat it too and create a balance of 50s style, but also 50s budget. And that's where you get kind of in the weeds. For example, all the Christopher Mihm films are shot in black and white because that's stylistically what you saw in the 1950s. But in the 50s, you shot in black and white because it was cheap. It wasn't because it was really a stylistic choice. I mean, sometimes it was, but for the most part, if you're making a cheap B movie, you made it on black and white film because it was inexpensive. So the modern day equivalent of that is shooting in color digitally, because that's the least expensive way to make your movie. So inherently there's this tension going on between homage and spoof. So with that tension in mind, where do Christopher Mihm's films fit in? These were actually really interesting because they kind of operated on a curve. When you started with The Monster of Phantom Lake, you can tell, it's a first-time filmmaker putting his movie together. I found myself genuinely impressed by the cast. The sort of throwback style of it was well captured through the performances. The cinematography was surprisingly competent. There were a few moments where, shots were clearly not lined up right or just done kind of amateurish. That kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. But overall, I found the package to be surprisingly impressive. It was funny at times, but if you kick back, relax, let yourself go with the story, you can actually have a pretty decent time with this. It certainly is a film that shows its budget. It's all basically various locations in the woods next to a lake. You spend a lot of time with the various groups that are camping on the lake. There's only so much killer monster stuff you can really put in here, so you spend a lot of time getting to know the characters, singing with them around the campfire. So if watching a little bit more of an extended narrative is something that appeals to you, you don't mind if there's a little bit of padding in the runtime, you'll be able to get a fair amount of enjoyment out of it. There's plenty of intentional, corny laughs inserted into the movie. Largely, the movie is not unintentionally funny, which is a good thing. So I genuinely enjoyed the first movie, and when it came to the second movie, I was really excited to dig into it. And It Came from Another World really didn't disappoint. In a lot of ways, this feels like a soft remake of The Monster from Phantom Lake. You have the main character returning in this from that film, Professor Jackson, which either he or a member of his family lineage shows up in pretty much all of the movies that I watched today, and I would assume in the movies to come as well. But even though this one's about aliens, it's actually a pretty similar plot. Basically, an alien crash lands next to a lake and corrupts a campgoer that is someone that Professor Jackson knows. So the only real difference between the two movies is one is someone's exposed to toxic waste, and then the other, someone's exposed to aliens, whatever that means. But what impressed me about this movie was Mim's ability to kind of open up the scope of this movie a little bit. You find yourself going back to the city, you get to meet Jackson's fiance, you get to see his home, you get to see the campgoer who's been corrupted, you get to see his home, you get to see the laboratory where Professor Jackson works, and you bounce back and forth from a few different locations, all of which are very simple, before the end of the movie when you find yourself going back to the lake and having the big final confrontation. There's more effort put into the effects in this film, which are clearly done on the computer, but in a very simple, lo-fi way that makes them fit into that 1950s aesthetic. After watching It Came from Another World, I hopped right into Cave Women on Mars, which was my favorite film of the series so far. It continues to grow in scope and ambition. There's more effects in this. You have a couple of astronauts that are going through outer space. They end up on Mars where they meet prehistoric women who are dominant over these primitive, subservient male slaves. It's very Edgar Rice Burroughs. If you're into like the Carson of Venus type stuff, this feels like it's kind of taking a page from that. But what really impressed me the most about this movie wasn't just that the scope continued to grow, you had more costumes, more sets, more locations, but you had probably the best cast in this movie. I'm going to probably butcher his name, but Daniel R. Jervin plays the main character in this, who ends up in a classic will they won't they relationship with one of these warrior women, who's also really well cast. And the two of them together really just did a fantastic job. They played off each other really well. There's a lot of great chemistry there. And both of them I actually bought as actors and not just kind of locals. Which I don't mean to insult the other people who I'm sure are real actors, but some people just play better on film. That's just kind of how it is, no offense. But Daniel Jervin in this actually kind of gave me Chris Pine vibes, which was surprising and unexpected. So as I said kind of a while ago now, these movies kind of operate on a curve, and the tension between homage and spoof shifts as you go through the series. And as we got later into the series, the balance went more away from homage, which is what I felt like the first three were, to spoof territory. And not that the first ones weren't intentionally spoofish and funny, but they leaned heavier into that the further into the movies I got. And this is where the movies kind of started to lose me, because the humor was just a little too forced, and also some of the shortcomings of the filmmaking became more noticeable. Partly because after watching Cave Women on Mars, I felt like I had a good understanding of what this director's strengths are, and I felt like he didn't quite rise to the occasion in the next one, which was Terror from Beneath the Earth. This is another one that's pretty short. It also has Daniel Jervin in it, who is making a welcome appearance in this. The thing that kind of took me out of this movie was the cave sets. So basically you have this bat creature that is in a cave, and most of the movie is the characters walking around this cave trying to find their loved ones who have been kidnapped by this bat creature. And the cave is realized as a set. And maybe there's a balance. It could have been partly done on a set, partly done on a location. But the set that they made was very clearly like a room. It's got a couple hallways that you can have someone walk through and walk back from. You have a main entrance, but overall, it's really just kind of an empty room. You can move stalactites around, and that's kind of it. And I would have liked to have seen the director put a little bit more effort into designing that set, because they really had to milk that location to make all the scenes that they needed to have in the movie and have all those places seem like a unique location. And they didn't really succeed in that. And that was something that I think, if you were really clever with your budget, you just could have done better than you did. So that was why this one felt a little bit lower. And then as I've thought about it more, it kind of ranks lower on the list because some of the problems that started to emerge in this movie became very front and center in the next movie, which was Destination Outer Space. Christopher Mihm described this as if Star Wars was directed by Ed Wood, which is kind of a recipe for disaster for me, because now you're getting into the intentionally bad category, which is what loses me on these B-movie genre spin-off type things that people do. To me, like, you got to come at it wholeheartedly, trying to make a great movie with what you have. I think this is where Christopher Mihm maybe is victim to his own success to a certain degree, because he's got a following now. I believe this one was maybe kickstarted or something. One of these movies had a list of donors, producers credits that looked like some kind of a Kickstarter or Indiegogo type thing. So he's got a little bit of a budget. He's got a regular crew. He's better at making movies, but he's not getting better as a filmmaker in this, because this film is very ambitious. You've got many locations, spaceships, aliens, all these different components that you would have in like a Star Wars, and you're reaching beyond your means a little bit on one hand, and then on the other hand you're kind of blowing off the audience by saying, well, I'm going to do a crappy job at this because that's what the audience expects. But for me, I want you to put your best foot forward, and I would want you to, make something within your means well, more so than I want to see an Ed Wood. Like, I don't want to see an intentionally bad movie. Like, that's just how I feel. And I watch a lot of bad movies and genuinely enjoy them. Like, I always talk about Bill Rebane on this channel. As a matter of fact, he's literally right here. And I always sing his praises because, he's doing the best with what he's got. And he hasn't got much. But, if Bill Rebane can make Twister's Revenge and get, like, 2 tanks and a monster truck to drive around town and, like, blow stuff up and actually demolish buildings with no budget, just his friends and positive word of mouth, you can do better than Destination Outer Space. I just know that there's more talent in here than we're actually seeing on screen, which was frustrating. The other thing about this one is this is the Star Wars-y one, so now you're making an homage to a B-movie homage. Because Star Wars is an homage to the B-movies of the era, but done spectacularly. And you're saying, well, I'm going to make an homage to an homage poorly. It just makes me want to watch Star Wars, and all the Star Wars references in this, for me, were eye-rolling. And there are actually some Star Wars references I didn't talk about in the other films, which were also eye-rolling. I didn't like any time there's like a Star Wars reference. Some of the other references were kind of cute, but not Star Wars. It's just too on the nose. There was one good Star Wars one in here, which is there's like a reenactment of the Tusken Raider scene. And one famous element of that scene is when they filmed it, the Tusken Raider goes like this with his arms. And in the movie, he goes up and down because they basically spun that film back and forth to create that motion so it would be more kinetic and more exciting. And when they have that moment here, at least it appears that he does the same thing. He only has the guy going up once, and then he just like makes it happen in editing. I liked that because that was like really inside baseball. But other than that, skip the Star Wars stuff. So Destination Space, easily my least favorite film of the week. It did bounce back from there. It got a little bit away from the blatant spoof territory and got a little bit more into what I think is Mim's strength, which is a little bit more confined and focused. Attack of the Moon Zombies still is pretty ambitious because the whole thing takes place on a space station. The space station is not particularly well realized, but it's forgiven because there's actually some great monster effects in it. Obviously, I don't know, it's like some sponges or whatever. But it's actually very convincing on screen. I was actually impressed by the zombies in this. And, you have a group of people on this space station trying to survive this zombie plant apocalypse and also prevent them from getting to Earth. Like, it's a very classic sci-fi concept with classic stakes in it. And the characters are kitschy, they're fun, they reference back to characters we've seen in prior movies, which was nice. When you boil it down, even though the sets themselves were operating a bit beyond Mim's means, the characters, the performances, and the creature effects made up for it and made this a largely satisfying B movie throwback for me. Also, this does have my favorite actor of this series, Daniel Svengen, or whatever his name is, playing an alien space trucker type in a way that I thought was really good. He hams it up, but in a great way, and once again was a highlight of the movie for me. So that left me with just one more, House of Ghosts. And this one, I would say, continued on the upswing. This was towards the top of my list of the movies that I watched today. This is a movie that's basically about a seance in which the dead are brought back to life and chase people around a house for 90 minutes. At the end, you find out that the person who conducted this seance is actually working for the government, and the government's going to weaponize fear or some such thing. Just kind of a fun sci-fi twist on a ghost story. This is channeling William Castle, and in a way that felt like a really nice homage. Not a spoof necessarily. To me, it genuinely felt like William Castle, which I was pretty impressed by. It helps that Christopher Mihm comes out at the beginning of the movie and gives you a warning the way William Castle would before one of his movies. In Christopher Mihm's version, he tells you should have a fear shield to cover your eyes, and he explains why you might need a fear shield and you might not want to just close your eyes. And of course, inside the DVD, he includes some eye coverings for you, which I think is a nice little touch. A great homage to the classic William Castle style. Definitely a fun movie to watch. Definitely leaving things on a high note, so I'm excited to go back and watch the second half of this series. I won't be doing it this coming week. I'm going to take a breather, so maybe in a month or two I'll sit down, watch the second half. I don't know if I would recommend watching all of these in a day like I did, because that can be a little bit sensory overload, and it's certainly possible that I was harder on the middle section of movies because I was a little bit burned out before the movies kind of roped me back in later on. But if you get a chance to check these movies out, I would recommend it. Probably Cave Women on Mars would be my number one recommendation if you want to get a sense of what his movies are like. This is a pretty good avenue into it. If you don't like this movie, I don't know that there's any others you're gonna care for, to be honest. But It Came from Another World is also a good one. This one is a bit more on the spoof side, but moves along at a better clip than The Monster from Phantom Lake. And if you're a William Castle fan, I would definitely recommend checking out The House of Ghosts because he really does a great job capturing that 50s William Castle experience in this. That wraps up this week in the 365 movie challenge. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, especially if you've seen any of these movies. I'd love to talk about them with you. What do you think? Tell me your thoughts, and I hope you guys have a great week in movies. Thanks for watching.